This is Duke University.
Hi, I'm Sumati Ramaswamy. I'm Professor of History and International Comparative Studies at Duke University. And I'm a colonial historian of India. And I'm delighted today to welcome Professor Ranjani Mazumdar, who is visiting Duke from New Delhi. Ranjani is Professor of Cinema Studies at the School of Arts and Aesthetics at Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. And she's the author, among many other wonderful works, of a monograph called Bombay Cinema, an archive of the city, published in 2007 by the University of Minnesota Press. Welcome, Ranjani, to Duke and to Durham. I hear this is your first visit to North Carolina. So I hope it will be very special, and we're really looking forward for the next 2 days of this exciting conversation around the city and cinema. So I wanted to begin by beginning with the book itself, which I've so enjoyed reading, and I actually use it a lot in my own teaching. I end my Modern India survey actually with a unit on Bombay cinema as a global force. So I've much enjoyed reading your work. And really my first question comes to you as a historian, because I was very taken, among other things, with the subtitle of the book, right? An archive of the city. So historians, as you know, work with the archive, and with archive as a construct. It's where we do our work, we think, and so on. So I wanted to know how you, as a cinema studies scholar, approaches the archive, and why did you decide you wanted to use that construct as opposed to, say, something like the imaginary, which is something that Sangeeta Gopal has used, for example, in her work, where she talks about Bombay cinema as the depository of the nation's imagination.
Okay, so that's a great question for me, because I thought a lot about this question, and the subtitle was something that caught on to people's imagination of the book. But I use the archive primarily to think about a notion of an archive that is constructed by more than people. I mean, that it's not just an institutionalized form, but that in the film industry there are people who are constantly responding to issues and debates on the city. And I wanted to also push the idea of the cinema not just as a representation of something else, but a film itself, the film itself as an artifact, as an archiving machine of the 20th century, right from the beginning. And actually the early period, in the silent period, lots of people have written about how cinema captures a trace of the ephemeral experiences of the city like no other medium. Even photography didn't come close to it. So there's something intrinsic about film as a medium, as a machinic force, as a technological form that brings bodies and technologies and commodities together in space. So in that sense, the ephemeral, complicated experience of urban life is not something that any other medium can capture in the same form as film can. And there's something about the space-time relationship in cinema and movement and the kinetic forces of the city that cinema can capture that's unique to it. And that's why I was trying to make an argument, and it's not an argument just about India. This is an argument in general about film as a form, which is where I came from, because there were debates about this, especially in the context of European modernity, but no, people hadn't dealt with it across the world. And I wanted to also locate this debate in the South Asian context, where film was not taken seriously as a scholarly enterprise, and certainly it was not taken seriously as an evidentiary form. So the fact that there are script writers who write films, the fact that there are the film navigates locations, captures many things, this experience had to be foregrounded, especially in relation to the literature, the scholarly literature on South Asian history. The city was, at least when I was doing my work, a marginal aspect of scholarly work. And to me, a lot was present in the world of film. So for me, film was an artifact, a technological form, and had to be taken seriously. And I wanted to use the term archive to broaden it and make it sort of float into another kind of landscape.
Fascinating. So, you know, as I'm hearing you, I'm thinking about how it's so important to make the argument about film, especially the point you made about silent film, right? As a memory bank as well, right? And that we turn to films also for all of the memory work they're doing, the memory work of the nation, the world, and so on. So who do you think are the custodians then of this kind of archive? Is it then the people? Because, you know, historians typically tend to think, especially of official archives, as being maintained by the state. They are sort of doing the work of the state in some sense, the memory work of the state, right? So do you think this is sort of the memory work of the people?
No, I wouldn't go so far as to say something like that. I would say that film, you know, I think when we do film work with film, we have to construct and create our own archives, because very little material about cinema is actually available in official archives. So we do encounter a lot of collectors, a lot of script writers. Oral memories play a very important role. So if we look at film as something that is constituted as an event with the help of several other players, then the frame can be opened out to speak to us as an archive, which is not the voice of just one person,
right,
but several people, sometimes in conflict with each other,
right,
but different kinds of things come into play. So writers will imagine something, the cinematographer imagines something else, the sounds of the city are captured by sound recordists in another way. The production design is about researching various locations of the city and trying to evoke something about the experience that any film is trying to capture. So in that sense, if one looks at it as something that's constituted by several forces, it becomes an open-ended archival drive, because lots of people are playing their roles in bringing something to the screen.
Right, and there's nothing particularly hegemonic then with one, which is one of the main distinctions, I would say. So, you know, there's a point you made in all of these comments about the city itself, and I know your particular city in your work is Bombay, or what we now call Mumbai. So I wondered if you could speak a little bit about why you have chosen in your work to talk about Bombay's place in Bombay cinema, because that has sort of been the thrust of all your work, right? Is Bombay a paradigmatic city for you, a paradigmatic Indian city, a paradigmatic global city, or is it an exceptional city as you see it portrayed in these films?
No, though I have worked primarily on the city of Bombay in this book, but I actually also say in the book that it's about the idea of the city. And so for me, Bombay became the quintessential modern city. At some point in the 1950s, the debates shift from Calcutta to Bombay. And there's an exodus of film personnel from Calcutta to Bombay. Bombay is the city through which India started to think about itself as a modern place. And so in that sense, it became the quintessential window onto window showcasing modern urban life. So though I have located my work in Bombay, I'm interested in other cities as well. And right now, tomorrow when I present, it's going to be about both Bombay and Delhi.
Fantastic.
So,
it was going to be one of my questions. What is your current work about?
Yes, so it's going to be about both Bombay and Delhi. So Bombay is, for me, the stepping stone, is the city through which I can sort of position these larger debates about modernity, globalization, and film culture in India. But because it's a film city, the fact that the film industry is located in Bombay makes Bombay a slightly unique city.
Right.
Because the film personnel are spread out all across the city, and they bring their own experiences of living in Bombay. There's something about Bombay's urban life that bleeds into cinema, and cinema bleeds into the city itself.
And you wouldn't say it's the same for Madras, Chennai, or Calcutta? because those are also major film production centers, right, in regional cinema, what come to be called regional cinema, because Bombay cinema is claimed, you know, the sort of the national imaginary, right? So how would you, one of the things I have been concerned about as a scholar, especially when I teach Indian cinema, is the overwhelming weight of the scholarship. Even though we do have some works, you know, on these other quote-unquote regional cinemas, but the overwhelming weight of the scholarship is on Bombay films. And the recognition of Indian cinema itself globally really reduces it immediately to Bombay, almost as if these other places are not producing films, right? So I wonder if you could say a couple of things about that.
No, absolutely. There is Calcutta, there is Chennai, and there is the Hyderabad Telugu film industry. So these regional film industries have played a very important role in constituting what we refer to as India's dominant film cultures. But I mean, things are changing now, but I think the kind of force Bombay had across the nation, Bombay cinema had across the nation, was still not something that the other film industries had. And that's of course changing because we have a lot of co-productions now. So the same film will be released in Tamil, Hindi, Telugu. So there's something else that is going on which is quite interesting, and one will have to track that a lot now. But I think that was the major thing. The other thing is that I'm comfortable with Hindi. I know Hindi, Urdu. I grew up in the north of India. So my relationship was with Bombay cinema. That's what I grew up with. I didn't grow up with either Bengali or Tamil cinema. But I know that, you know, the same argument, similar arguments can be made about all these other places. But I was trying to create in the book, as if you, I was trying to create a tension between the city and nation. And
caught that,
that tension for me was played out in Bombay cinema.
Very interesting.
That tension.
So, and I would, you know, I don't know very much about Bengali cinema and even Tamil cinema. I'm not, you know, that well versed as I am actually in Bombay cinema. But I would think that we would see various versions of those tensions. And as a scholar, I would love to see more comparative discussion of all of these film cultures, right? But coming to the point you made about how you grew up in Delhi, right? And well, the way you begin the book is with this wonderful word love, right? How you grew up with a love for Bombay films. And, you know, it's very interesting that your scholarly professional life has also ended up by studying it. But you're not from Bombay yourself. You're not a Bombay girl, if I may say so, within quotes. So have you learned to love the city of Bombay through watching Bombay movies? Or what is your relationship then to the city as you approach it through your work on the films that the city produces?
So I would say that right now I have a love-hate relationship with Bombay. When I started doing my research, and I used to go every year to Bombay, and that not just for my book but also for other kinds of film work, I really liked Bombay at that time, because Delhi was really not that kind of a thriving metropolis that Bombay was. You know, you had a sense of anonymity in Bombay. It just had a different kind of urban feel.
When would this have been? In the 90s?
I started going from the late 80s, but 90s was the time when I really did my research over there. And I used to really like that about Bombay. It had an urban culture, urban feel, and people across classes traveled in trains together. You need that kind of cross-class movement in the city to actually have that urban feel. Delhi somehow seemed much more segregated to me and didn't have that kind of quality. But over the years, I have realized that in Bombay, the most interesting people are the creative professionals, either writers or poets, and those certainly in the film industry. And academically, Bombay doesn't have that kind of position at all like some of the other cities. And but in the cinema, I felt, because it's a cinema made of outsiders. All the people who've made Bombay cinema what it is and continue to make it what it is are all outsiders of the city who have come to that city. So this combination of encountering the city for the first time to, so when you come to a city for the first time, you notice more things. And once you've been habituated into it, certain things sort of start to disappear from your imagination or from your vision. So it's that I found Bombay to be an interesting city, and the film's very interesting because almost everyone who was writing and making these films came from somewhere
elsewhere.
else. And there was a past and there was a present.
How
and it's that
exciting.
combination that made the films very fascinating.
How exciting.
Yeah.
So this leads me to, I guess, the last question for which we have time, unfortunately, which is we have consciously not used the word Bollywood
Yeah.
for the last 15 minutes. And you certainly do not use it in your scholarship at all. And yet, this is the way in which, at least globally, the cinema has gotten translated, right? This is how the term, that's how the term is recognizable and legible in the world at large. So, and I know there's a lot of scholarship on why we use Bollywood as a term, why we don't want to use it, and should we use it, a lot of hand-wringing. What is your thought on this? And why have you consciously chosen not to use the category Bollywood?
Because one, Bollywood immediately conjures up something that is derivative of Hollywood.
Okay.
So that's my first instinctive reaction to that. And when I was doing the work, I was really, I have a chapter on Gangland Bombay, I have a chapter on these big family films. Those are the films that have really
Right.
got identified with a notion of Bollywood
That's
culture.
right.
Now, at the point when I was doing my research, I really felt that the Indian diaspora drive for a certain kind of cinema was because so much money was coming from the US and
Right.
UK,
Right.
that 50% of the revenue of some of these big family films was actually coming from this part of the world. And the desire to see a sort of frozen notion of what Indianness was driving that cinema.
And also shifting it perhaps even away from Bombay,
Away
right? Many
from
of these-
Bombay.
Yeah.
So all the markers of location and all
Yes.
sort of disappeared. And
Right.
what I argue in that chapter is that the city is almost erased because
Yes,
there's a
I know
notion
that.
of the modern in which you will erase the signs of the city completely. And you can perform rituals and a notion of Indianness within enclosed spaces that are lavish.
Right.
So it seemed to me a moment where Bollywood was becoming identified with this kind of, a mythic notion of what India is. Not that all the other films that I deal with don't have a mythic notion. It is, but it's a more complicated form where the revenue, the economics of the audience that wanted these films was also driving the vision. And to me, Bollywoodization got identified with that.
How fascinating.
So I
is.
wanted to maintain a distinction and ensure that I could bring in all those films, like the gangster films would never be considered Bollywood. They wouldn't even get released abroad. So the Bollywood films are particular films that find a release globally.
Yes, and the particular ones which have song and a kind of global rhythm and dance,
Yeah.
those come to be
Lavish costumes.
lavish costumes, and the rural enters it in such a fascinating
Yeah.
way, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
sort of the site of the pure,
Yeah.
essential India,
Yeah.
and so on. It's fascinating to think about it. Well, Ranjani, it looks like we are out of time. I'm so delighted to have even this short conversation with you and look forward to further discussions both later today and tomorrow
you.
and Saturday.
Thank you. It was great to have this conversation after many years.
Yes, I know. I think I brought back good memories.
Yes,
One's
thank
first
you.
research is always like, oh.
Yes.
Thank you.